Back in July, my production company had a 5-figure lifestyle photo shoot with a photographer, a videographer, 3 models, and 1 assistant. This video is talking about how I planned the day, the cost breakdowns, and how you can land 5-figure deals like this as well. If this is your first time here, my name is Chris Pieta. I run a production company and teach creative business online. Typically, I stick to product photography, but today we're switching things up and talking all about lifestyle photography. We'll focus on the business side of this photo shoot and break down how I hired talent and how much the day cost my company to produce the best photos and videos possible for the client. We're also talking about how I priced this so that I made over 5 figures from this shoot. If you've been watching my channel for any period of time, you know I say that you should niche down. The more specific you can get with your niche, the more money you can make. My niche is food and beverage product photography. That's a ways away from a lifestyle shoot. So why did I offer it? Truth is, I didn't. The client asked me to do it. Now, if you've been watching for a while, you also know that I say that clients don't come to you. You have to be the one to reach out to clients. Let me explain what's going on here. This client is actually one of my product photography clients. I've been working with them for a while. I cold emailed them a few years back now. We booked a discovery call, they signed a product photography proposal, and here we are. We've been doing product photography projects together for a few years now, and they asked about my lifestyle photography capabilities. Well, for the past 3 years, I've only been doing product photography, but before then, I was actually doing a lot of lifestyle shoots. Photographing models in the streets of Chicago was what I did on weekends. I didn't get paid for it, I just did it for free. I didn't have a business or anything. Now, fast forward 3 years later, a client is asking me if I'm able to do lifestyle photography. Those skills I learned years back came right back to the surface, and I gave them a fat yes. My website portfolio is all product photography though, so I had to create a new portfolio for that client. I showed the client what I was able to do with my lifestyle capabilities. They saw this new portfolio, loved it, and signed on for a lifestyle photo shoot. Now, this portfolio isn't public. It was made specifically for this client, and it's only in the proposal that I sent to them. Here I was back to photographing people. I had the signature from the client, so the project was good to go. Next was planning all the logistics for that day. This was going to be a full day shoot. Typically for product photography, I just shoot things in my studio at my own pace. Now, let's say you're not like me and you've had very little experience photographing models or with lifestyle photography. The client asks you for lifestyle photography and they have a 5 or 10 grand budget. That's a lot of money. Do you walk away from it and leave it on the table? Or do you say you can do it even though you're not 100% confident yet? I would actually lean towards the latter. If you're a competent photographer, you can quickly learn this new style of photography. You've got a lot of money riding on this, so go on YouTube, watch a few videos on posing, call up your friends, DM some beginner models on Instagram, and practice before that real shoot. Get good before the actual shoot day. You managed to learn one genre of photography already, you can learn this new one as well. I always will try and help my clients as much as possible as I can with my own skill set. And if I don't know something and they need it, I will learn it. By the way, if you also want to get 5-figure deals like this, check out my creative business newsletter. You can preview it down below in the description without even having to enter your email. Now, this photo shoot needed to be planned out. I needed models, I needed a videographer, and I needed a beautiful location. Keep watching because at the end of the video, I'll actually break down how much money I made from all of this. If you fail to prepare, you prepare to fail. That's how that quote goes, right? This day needed a lot of preparation. I've actually never done a photo shoot at this scale before, so I needed a plan. I needed to be able to run through the day in my head. Let's start with the assets the client needed. The goal of the project was to create beautiful lifestyle photography for the launch of their new product line. They needed a lot of photos. Now, I don't want to use exact numbers because I don't feel comfortable telling you exactly the number of assets my clients got and what they paid for, but I will give you a very good estimate. So in terms of actual photos, the contract was for about 100 lifestyle photos and 20 product photos added on. We were going to use 3 different models, 2 female, 1 male. They'd have multiple outfits throughout the day. Since there were so many photos, the client also wanted to have multiple locations. This was going to be challenging. We were working with around 23 products for the shoot. And at the last minute, the client also wanted to add on some video into the contract. This was going to be a busy day. I was trying to figure out how I was going to shoot all these photos and videos during the day. And then I remembered, I run a production company. It's not my job to do all the work. My role is to get the client the final assets they need. So I coordinated with a videographer hired him, and figured out that we'd be able to shoot simultaneously. The videographer I hired is actually a creative friend of mine and a subscriber of this channel. Shout out to Rob if you're watching. By the way, if you're just starting out as a freelancer and want to jumpstart your creative business, I have a free checklist down below. It will jumpstart your creative business in 30 days. Grab that free download in the description. With that in mind, it's time to talk about how I coordinated the shoot. So we already have a videographer. That's great. Next up, the photographer. That was me. I handled all the photography for the shoot. I set up the lighting equipment, I directed the models, I took control of the lifestyle photography element. But what is a lifestyle photography shoot without any models? I had to get 3 models for this shoot. A lot of the times photographers will just hire friends to model, but I wanted to do this right. So I went and found some professional models. I posted on my Instagram story asking for models between a certain age, and I didn't really get much engagement with that story. Luckily, a former coworker of mine has been pursuing modeling for quite some time, so I hit him up with what I needed. I told him I needed 3 models, 2 females, 1 male. A few hours later, he delivered. Now this was my first time working with professional models, and as soon as they agreed to work with me over text, I had to get it in writing. I put together a short contract in PandaDoc, sent it to them, and had them sign. I did what I always do in the situation. I went to Google and found other examples of contracts similar to what I needed. I built out my own terms, and I just used some common sense. I sent those contracts out, the models signed, I paid their deposits, and that was taken care of. All right, so if you're keeping track at home, we've got 1 videographer, 1 photographer, and 3 models. What are we missing? An assistant. This day was going to be crazy, so I needed some help. My girlfriend Kayla agreed to help assist during the day, so we had our team. A team of 7 creating some incredible lifestyle photos. Keep in mind, I've never assembled a team like this before the shoot. How was I going to ensure that everything went smoothly? First off, I had to be clear in all my communication with the team. I told them exactly what time to show up and where. I told them everything they needed to bring, what outfits they needed, what gear they needed. I didn't miss any details. Having a plan is so important in these situations. It's the difference between a failed project and a successful project. Okay, so we're almost ready for the shoot day. What are we missing? The location. I wanted a really versatile space for this. I was hoping to rent a huge apartment with unique rooms for the shoot. I went to Airbnb, but I heard from a photography friend that some of the hosts don't want photo shoots happening, and some even charge an extra licensing fee for their photo shoots. I turned to a different website, PureSpace. PureSpace is basically an Airbnb for venues. It's designed for this exact purpose. After looking through their options for a while, I found this great spot in Chicago's Wicker Park neighborhood. It had tons of natural light, lots of plants, a huge kitchen, huge living space, and furnished bedrooms, perfect for every aspect of this project. I messaged the host and I rented it for the day. It did cost a pretty penny to rent, but I'll get into those breakdowns of costs in a little bit. I'll be talking about how much money I actually made at the end of this video, so stay tuned for that. All right, so we had the models and the team assembled, we had the space, we had the products. The shoot day was rapidly approaching and I was excited. All that being said, the shoot day didn't go exactly as planned. On the shoot day, I got there an hour early and I scoured out the location so I could have a good idea of what I wanted to do. Kayla helped me out with setting up food and drinks for the models and helped prepare all the products so they were ready to shoot. Rob came a little later, set up all his gear, and got everything ready. I was still missing 1 product from the client though. They said they'd overnight it to me to that shoot location, and they did. But I never got the product. They overnighted it to me because I had to have it that day, but UPS didn't deliver it. Apparently when you overnight something, you need a sign for it. I missed UPS at the door, and they just left with the product. A little rant here. That's a terrible policy on UPS's end. If you overnight something, that means you absolutely need it the next day. A signature requirement ruins this because if you miss the delivery window, you don't get the product. Overnight shipments should not have that requirement. Anyways, we ended up photoshopping in the product later and that was all fine. At this point, everyone's arrived except one of the models. No one can get a hold of her and I'm getting a little worried because we need her for these photos. I already paid a lot of money for the location and if she doesn't show up, I'm screwed. I start photographing the other 2 models and I get all the photos of them that I need. Eventually, the 3rd model texts me back saying she just woke up and slept through her alarm. She's on her way, I breathe a sigh of relief and continue with the shoot. Since we have videographer present, we coordinated the shoot. While I was photographing one model, he was doing video of the other model in a different room. Now that's efficiency. Fast forward 5 hours and the shoot wrapped up. I got all the photos I needed of all the models, and for the most part, everything went according to plan. At the very end of the day, when everyone was going home, I stopped everyone and talked to them one-on-one. I asked them simply, is there anything I could have done better during the shoot? I wanted constructive feedback. This was my first shoot of this scale, so I wanted to get better at this. Everyone said they had a great time and they loved working with me. No one had any constructive feedback except one of the models. She mentioned that I needed to be a bit more playful during the shoot with her. She'd prefer if I cracked some jokes during the shoot, stuff like that. She said I seemed really serious at times. I'm really glad she told me this because I didn't even realize it myself. I was just so focused on making sure the day went well that I think I came off as a bit too serious. It's great to know this because it gives me something to work on. If you ever find yourself working with other people, always ask what you could have done better. That's how we grow. A lot of the time, we don't see these things ourselves. We need other people to point them out. Anyways, after that, I went home, sorted through all the photos, sent them to my editor, and that was a wrap. Now let's talk dollar signs. I've been struggling to think of a way to talk about this part. I don't want to use the exact numbers because I don't want to reveal information that people wouldn't want me to reveal. So I'll use real numbers, but they're going to be scaled from what the numbers actually were. What I can tell you is this shoot was over 10 grand in revenue. That's real. Now let's talk about my cost breakdown in a scaled way. I'm talking the actual numbers and multiplying them by a percentage, so this can either be more or less than the real number. Maybe in the future video, I'll try and get you guys something more accurate, but here we go. First off, we're saying the client paid me $15,000 for the shoot. I had a lot of fees going into this. Each model charged me $550 for their time. We multiply that by 3 because we had 3 models. Next, Rob charged me $800 for the videos. Very fair price, great results from that. The space was actually the most expensive cost. It was $1,200 for the day. It cost a pretty penny, but I think it was worth it for the end result. Finally, my editor took a chunk. I paid her $500 for over 100 photos. Relatively cheap if you think about it. She's such a great team member. If you're making any money from photography, go and find yourself an editor. They will make you way more money than if you edit your photos yourself. Okay, so if we add up all our expenses and subtract that from our revenue, we get $10,850 of profit. For those keeping track at home, that's a 72% profit. This is essentially for a few days' work. That's a pretty good rate. Now, if you don't have a client yet, go get my free course in the description. That's how you get a client. That's all I got. My name is Chris Pieta, and I'll see you next week.